Oh, I
No,
can't.
yeah, only the host can assign the co-host responsibilities.
Yes, and now
Okay.
we are rolling.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for joining. Just a few reminders before we get started. If you have not registered already, please do so. Fill out the event survey and attend the town hall at the end of today's session, please. Oh, and one last thing, I guess I'll turn my camera on. So let's get started. We're talking about the value of Anuket. We hope that this is more of an interactive session. And we have some ask. Anuket have asked for the community members who are joining today. So here's a little background about Anuket. I won't read the slide in its entirety, but Anuket, delivers the common model standardized reference infrastructure and specifications, and you can read it later. A little more about the background of Anuket. Anuket develops the infrastructure and workload specifications, while integration testing and implementation community develops reference implementations, testing projects, conformance suites, and more. So think of it as Anuket having a couple of pillars, right? We have the specification piece of it, which includes the reference model, our reference architecture, the reference infrastructure, and the conformance. And in this, Anuket has delivered this. They've done well in delivering the specifications. The second pillar, which is the implementation piece, is the piece that we struggle with in the community, getting it adopted. We actually have the first section, the first piece here, lab as a service, set up. We have an infra test set up in for RI2 in the University of New Hampshire lab. And we just need to understand why Anuket is not being as as well adopted as we would like it to be, and getting folks to use the lab and test. So doing that reevaluation and thinking through it, we developed the Anuket Task Force. And the Anuket Task Force is just that we want to examine why the lack of adoption of Anuket and evaluate the strategies and make sure that we're still aligning with community needs. So we had this is the timeline of it. We had a call for volunteers on April 20th. We had our first meeting on May 1st, and the meetings are still ongoing. We've only had about 3 meetings so far. So we welcome anyone who wants to join. We'll have information about the task force and the TSC meeting later in the presentation. I want to talk specifically about our last meeting, which was on May 30th. We did a brainstorm exercise with those who are participating in the task force. And I thought that it was a very valuable exercise. So what we did was we wanted to, again, evaluate if we can come up with any quick wins, if there were any common answers to certain questions. We really had to dig deep and ask. So let me go to, let's see if I have that. So the brainstorming exercise, it was in 2 pieces. We had 4 questions that we just allotted the participants to time to answer these questions. Why is Anuket important to the industry, and what does the reliance or lack of the reliance reveal about our evolving relationship with technology, and some other 3 questions here. So again, we allotted the time for them to really think about these questions and to come up with their answers. And in evaluating the answers, we were trying to see if we came up with any common answers that can give us some low-hanging fruit of things that we can do in the interim to move Anuket forward. So that moves us to the second part of the exercise, which was then grouping the answers in a matrix. And the matrix, I know it's hard to see here because it's covered up, but the matrix basically had 4 sections in the matrix. And the 4 sections were quick wins. That was what I referred to as the low-hanging fruit, things that we can do immediately to move Anuket forward. closer to our goal. The bigger projects or the big projects are things that is going to cost us it's going to take more LOE, level of effort, right? And more time, more thought, whatever, to move it forward. Then we had a section for incremental improvements where we may be doing something, but we just need to tweak it a little bit to make it work better for our benefit. And then we had the avoidable efforts section, which was, these are things that we've tried, they were not as successful, so we're not going to spend any more effort into doing those things. And so it was a very good discussion, and we did identify what I consider some low-hanging fruit. Again, the low-hanging fruit are things that we can do almost immediate to get Anuket moving in the right direction. So some of the things that we identified are here, which was the cross-community collaboration, outreach to the vendors to participate in the implementation piece. Remember, if we go back to slide 4 here, I said this is the section that we are struggling with, getting folks to go to our lab that we spent time on setting up in the University of New Hampshire to test their projects. And so, and identify projects to assist with, that's projects outside of Anuket, things that are going on maybe with companies that we can bring Anuket involve Anuket and get them to work with us. And then the outreach to the cloud vendors to contribute by aligning with the specifications that are already out there. Anuket has delivered them. They delivered them to GSMA. They've done well in that piece, but we need the vendors to adopt these. And so that's some of the ask, some of the low-hanging fruit that we're trying to do. And I'll pause here because that is an ask. And the question here is there anything else from anyone on this call that you can identify that we should do, should try, or anyone who will be willing to participate in any of these pieces?
I think one thing what is, well, maybe that's not strategy, but I think in its current format, the look and feel of the Anuket specifications is very chaotic and very, very difficult to consume. So I think that's one key thing what we would need to do if we would like to get more adaptation and contributions to how to put it, like make the specifications look more professional.
Okay. And for others who may just speak, go ahead.
Could you, Gary, could you please expand on the making the specs look more professional? Put that into some context for me, please.
Yes, like to start with, if you would like to get to the Anuket specifications, you have to go to cntt.readthedocs.io, which is, I think, very confusing if nobody, if somebody doesn't know the history of Anuket, they would not know what CNTT is. So that's one thing. And if you start clicking to the different documents there, each of them looks a bit different, which is again very, very confusing. So it's not it doesn't look like a consistent set of specifications.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
One question on the vendors that you mentioned here. Does vendors also mean like CSPs, service providers, or?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. Say it again, please.
The question was your outreach to vendors. You mentioned it here.
Mm-hmm.
Does that include also the service providers? Because I would assume that they would be interested in having these kinds of infrastructure specifications, and that it's relevant for them as well.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And so we would need the service providers as well as the vendors to participate in this. So you are correct, Olaf.
I also have a question about the reach out to vendors. Is this cloud infrastructure vendors or CNF
It is.
vendors?
Specifically, I think we were talking about the cloud vendors. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gergely, but when
It is
this
the cloud vendors, yes.
Mhm.
So the last one are the cloud vendors, being either cloud as a service or on-prem. So we are talking about both, whatever, like OpenShift and Google Cloud here. But the main problem here is that without the buy-in from these big cloud vendors and making their implementation compliant with the specification, there is no how to put it, like real benefit for CNF vendors to comply with the specifications, because we need to be compliant with all the other things also. So now in its current form, Anuket is just an additional thing to be compliant with, and it's not the thing against we are all compliant. But that's the problem with the current situation. I don't know if I could explain it well.
No, I think I know what you're talking about, and having
Okay.
worked for one CNF vendor for not so long ago and another one a while back, I think I understand. And when I tried to, with my previous employer with Samsung, I tried to kind of sell Anuket internally to the groups that were developing the CNFs, and they were like, why should we care? Because none of the operators are requiring us to be compliant with Anuket, so why bother?
I think that is a problem. What we do not have here is that the operators do not require Anuket, and therefore it's very difficult to sell Anuket internally, because the products are just asking us, like, why should they care?
Yeah, which is from a product owner perspective is a reasonable question. Unfortunately, I mean, I feel as though when I was still more engaged with sort of the Anuket day to day, I did ask operators about this all the time, because they put in a great deal of investment into founding it, and into OPNFV, and then CNTT and the merger, and all of the sort of why so many operators came together to bring the CNTT piece in, was they felt it was so important to their business, and yet somehow they've never ended up requiring it. Also lots of operators have gone through the process of getting Silva off the ground, which has dependencies on Anuket, and yet so obviously there's some sort of appetite, because I keep seeing operators putting in the effort to get this started, to get a sister initiative started, and yet somehow don't require it. I mean, I'm sure you've asked Gergely and Sandra, do we have any insight into why that is? Sort of why, how we've gone from them saying, this is this is such a key, important strategic initiative, to them sort of saying that about Silva as well, and yet sort of none of this, ending up in RFP requirements or being required at all. Like, do we understand the disconnect that's going on, amongst our end user community there? And do we have any end users on this call who might want to pipe in?
Oh, do we? Maybe we can let them talk.
I don't think I see anyone from an operator.
Yeah, no, I think it was a question, not a statement.
Okay. Okay.
I think that if we look at the market, that changes even since CNTT started, and I don't remember when it was 2019 or 18 or something like that. I think things are changing, and if you just look at AT&T, they started back then with trying to build their own cloud platform. They realized it's not the right thing for them, and they moved that business unit, sold it to Microsoft, and I think that maybe Anuket needs to kind of survey the actual market and see who's left as potential end users or consumers for that technology or for that specification. I think, although it wasn't so long ago when the initiative started, things have moved rapidly. And I think that the last bullet here may be the best bet to kind of reach out to the cloud vendors, and they might have the highest level of interest in something like that. Although,
I'm not
again,
sure about that. That's I don't have any hard evidence or any discussions about this, but I think cloud vendors are not interested in this because this is not so this somehow removes the stickiness from their infrastructure. And what they
yeah, I agree with you. I was about to say that my personal experience with one cloud vendor, which I will not name, again, they were not highly enthusiastic about aligning with Anuket. They said, yeah, we are inspired by it, but we have our own thing.
Yeah, and without sort of service providers factoring that into their, partnership decisions with the hyperscalers, it's sort of, once again, kind of hard to convince them otherwise. I mean, I am getting back to sort of the end users, and maybe, as you said, Randy, the problem isn't as significant, with sort of their use of public, cloud infrastructure. But, to me, the evidence of how involved the operators just, were in the founding of Silva, which is, leverages, is dependent on, and, sort of directly, connected to Aniket, says that there's still appetite for something, but is the appetite, I don't know, more conceptual than something they're willing to enforce or
Yeah,
use at the end? And is that just a fundamental, I don't know, question? I mean, Gergely and Sandra, in terms of the operators who are active in the Aniket TSC, I mean, like, does Beth, what does Beth say, on this matter? What do any of the operators who are engaged in Aniket, have
Well, I
have they
have
been willing
information.
to say anything here?
Yeah, I have information about from Ricardo that they are using Anuket as a reference for their internal design documents
Mhm.
in Vodafone. I do not know, to be honest, about Beth and Verizon.
I mean, so it
I think
sounds
it's
as though.
interesting.
Oh, sorry, go on, Randy.
Yeah, I think let's kind of look at the data points we have. It sounds like maybe some of the original interested parties in CNTT and Anuket, like AT&T and Verizon, have evolved to something else. But on the other hand, there are some operators, especially in Europe, that are kind of doubling down on the need to build their own cloud platform, and maybe they expressed that recently with the creation of Silva. So I think that kind of from my vantage point, it sounds like Silva is the best bet for Anuket, and it represents maybe the potential end user community and I think that's also a kind of an collaboration opportunity for Anuket to maybe start focusing on that community and looking at them as representatives or the entire group of end users.
Yep.
So,
Rennie,
so if we look at that as Silva from, stepping back a little bit, and if Silva is kind of perceived as the only interested party in Anuket, does Anuket make sense as a standalone project?
Yes, that's what I
Should it be rolled into Silva?
Yes, that's what I started to think about, because there is a huge overlap between what the Anuket mission is and what the Silva mission is. So yeah, that's a good question. Like maybe combining them together would be a way forward.
maybe, but then the other thing is we have to pause because Anuket, we have missed some key opportunities, right? And that's in the collaboration piece of it. We have not done that enough as a community. If you all are okay, I would like to move on.
Yeah.
Because you're hitting.
Just one quick comment. I did notice yesterday in one of Wim's sessions on Nefio that he was including Anuket in his architectural diagrams.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, David, we may have supplied the Nephew community with some of these diagrams, and they were more forward-looking and more than everything, and not representing any actual integration efforts. So I wouldn't count on that. And again, I like to, as Sandra wants to move on, so I would like to kind of summarize our thoughts at the moment. I think we are all in consensus that Silva is the best bet for Anuket at the moment in terms of collaboration.
And so, well, I wanted to move on because you keep hitting the pointers, Randy, when you were talking about of all the low-hanging fruit that we have identified, and which I said that Anuket has missed out on some key opportunities, is the collaboration piece, right? All of those steps in slide 7, it requires us to collaborate. And so Anuket needs to change the approach a little bit and stop waiting for them to come to us and for us to take it to them. Okay, vendors or whatever. So that's where we have requests. I don't know if anybody, I was looking through the list here, and I don't know, but anyway, the community feedback, comments, suggestions, and once the communities are identified, and I think it's been clear that we've identified Silver as one, I would venture out and say Nefio would be another, but once the communities are identified, to do some strategic collaboration across LF networking and outside of LF networking to move Anuket forward and move us across that finish line. And so the ask was going to be, again, once they identify the communities, to have liaisons. I mean, a lot of folks are already participating in these other communities anyway. And so it's just a matter of coming back and reporting that to Anuket and seeing how we can work and better collaborate with these communities. And we give you several ways you can do that. You can come to the Anuket TSC meetings. The information is here. We have the task force meetings ongoing right now that are weekly at this time. And you can email myself or Gergely if interested. But yeah, we need liaisons that are already participating in these communities to work with Anuket so that we can move this forward.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think, yeah, it's good to sort of, have these things. And of course, the meetings are open. I'm just wondering if, some very specific, getting on, sort of like set 3 targets for sort of, these are the highest priority collaborations, and sort of, both within Anuket, and then, sort of maybe show up at the TSC or the, relevant meetings for those groups, say, look, this is how we think this could work. We're looking for a named person here to step up. Here's our named person, right? Like, so that maybe within the Anuket TSC, there's a named person for, I don't know, let's say collaboration with 5G Super Blueprint, collaboration with Silva, and collaboration with ORAN. That's just off the top of my head. I don't know if those would be the three priorities, from the Anuket TSC perspective, and, kind of say, like, I, Gergely, am going to care about ORAN, I, Beth, am going to care about Silva, and, I, Pankaj, am going to care about, 5G Super Blueprint or something like that. And then, because that way there's sort of some accountability and responsibility on the Anuket side, but then you're also asking, sort of a few select named committees to, kind of, rather than just kind of throw it open, come to this meeting if you desire, sort of make the pitch and say, this is what you're going to get out of it. Could you name a person to care about this, relationship and help move it, forward, or, kind of come with a specific pitch to ORAN, which, I think it could be, ensuring Anuket alignment with their, OCloud concept, for example, and ensure that ends, that supporting that ends up in the specs and in the RI. And that's just an idea. And as I said, I use those as placeholders. I don't know if those would be, sort of the top priorities, for y'all, but it's something that
I'm happy to report that we have this concept of technical officers and technical coordinators, and Beth is our nephew technical officer. However, we have vacancy for our Oran and Silva technical officer positions.
So let's address the elephant in the room. How many members of the Anuket TSC are on this session?
Again, going back to missed opportunities, that's
Well,
one.
It is one, I think.
Yep, I think it's one as well, which is a little bit disturbing.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you've got the entirety almost of the LF staff here, so elephant staff here. So obviously
everyone but Casey.
Yeah, but we can't care more than the Anuket about Anuket than the Anuket TSC cares about itself, to a certain extent.
Just one data point about Anuket and Silva. So Cedric is already kind of straddling both the TSCs or both communities, and he's working.
Yeah, Cedric's not on the TSC.
But he's an Anuket community member and contributor to the Funk Test and a few of the non-specification parts of Anuket. And so there is some degree of coordination going on, more with the OPNFV part of Anuket, not so much with the CNTT.
Yes, it's the RC2 and the Functest Kubernetes, which are used by Silva, and Cedric is supporting this collaboration. Yes, and then
going back to Anuket. Dan, Dan is on, and let me just take a moment to thank Dan, because she's done a lot of work on the back end with Anuket. So we just want to thank you for that. A lot of our community members are doing what they can, but I just wanted to acknowledge that. But yeah, so we have two. I didn't two, and if we count Gergely, 3. But again, still very low number. Gergely, I'm actually done with my piece. You want to share anything? Should I stop sharing?
I do not have anything to share. I just wanted to discuss things. But that was more. I was hoping to have more participation from the TSC. But anyways, I think we can address some of the issues even with this audience. One is that in the Anuket TSC or in Anuket in general, now we have a problem of disappearing officials, let's say. So according to our current count, we are missing, let me just check the exact numbers. 2 PTLs, 1 TSC member, and we know that another TSC member who is also a co-chair will disappear at the end of this month, and we miss a release manager. So that somehow indicates loss of interest from the community in the project, and also we are really struggling to get volunteers for replacing these officials. And I have 2 big concerns, because we already decided that we will not do headless projects. But then what do we do with RC2, for example, which was already mentioned today, which is used by Silva as an upstream project, but we do not have a PTL after the end of the month. That is one of the concerns of mine, and the other one is, of course, the release manager story. I think you are all familiar with the story is that Scott is the current release manager, and we were not able to get anybody to volunteer for the release manager position. We were indicating this problem to the board. We didn't get any answer yet. The question is, what do we do as an Anuket community if we do not have release manager by the end of the Orinoco release? And well, there are a couple of options. Running the project without having releases, I think that is not a good option. However, technically it is possible. Doing some kind of a community release management, I think it is not working, because release management is really like a cat herding task, and it's just somebody have to do the work. And there is the option to put the project to some kind of a passive state, let's say. I forgot the exact terminology. Maybe Olaf, you can help. What was the correct term? But to change the state of the project to non-active. I
think it depends how far back you want to go. I think it could be still run in a kind of maintenance mode for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And probably it actually really makes sense to reach out to the Silva community if they are still kind of users of the specifications, if they could maybe help out in a way to fill some of your tasks that you have to do. I'm not sure how much of a release management thing that could be, and how far you can automate all this. But yeah, I guess it would make sense to reach out to Silva community just to get a feeling if they would be willing to at least keep Anuket in a maintenance mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I can do. Any other alternatives from the audience? How can we operate without a release manager? Maybe I'm just missing an alternative.
I mean, my main suggestion is maybe talk to some of the other projects and sort of maybe hear from them, you know, how they sort of get volunteers, you know, for that role within them, if they work without a release manager, how they execute that and how it works.
Well, we can say that in ONAP it doesn't work particularly well.
Which, yeah, which is fair. But, you know, I mean, I know this isn't sort of necessarily what you want to hear, but, you know, there are a lot of projects at the Linux Foundation, and only exactly 2 have ever had a staff member provide release management functions, and that's Anuket and ONAP. So there are a lot of projects that are able to succeed and move forward sort of without it being a paid staff position. And I know that that's not necessarily helpful information, but there are lots of groups out there, you know, who are making it work. So maybe, you know, understanding what they do and how they do it, and, you know, what they're able to, you know, automate, and, you know, perhaps there are higher expectations of PTLs, or they have a better sort of calibrated recruiting pitch, you know, for that as a volunteer role. I guess my point is, you're not alone, and, you know, very far from being alone.
Good to hear. Okay. Oh, that was the idea of approach. I'm taking some notes to the wiki. Maybe I can even share that.
Yeah, but again, the key to all of this is reaching out to other communities for answers. So
Yes, that's clear. Yes, okay. And I think that is also somehow the key for solving the disappearing officials problem, because there we also need volunteers. And now RC2 is looking for a volunteer for a couple of months, because Scott announced that he will leave the project in advance. But last week, or week before last week, Walter also announced that he will not be able to lead RM after Orinoco. So that's recent news. And I think there is no nomination page yet for RM, so maybe there are people who are volunteering, we just don't know about them. But for RC2, it is a real problem. But okay, this is what I wanted to discuss. Anything else from the audience?
I would have another question on these low-hanging fruit, reaching out to ORAN. Is that ORAN Alliance, or is that ORAN software community? And have you kind of checked in kind of what state they are of the specifications. So is there still a good opportunity to get some of the Anuket specifications adopted, or are they all already very far in the process? And so basically what I'm asking is how good is the prediction of alignment there in the specification process?
I think we have very good chances, at least if you are asking me. I think it is Oran Alliance and Working Group 6, the IMS DMS specs, and they have a Kubernetes profile there. And currently the Kubernetes profile specification is, well, it just says that you should use Kubernetes in a very long way. There is nothing specific about the version of Kubernetes or any configuration or anything is not defined there. So I already started a discussion via or Oran delegates to somehow align the specification with Array2. But of course, it's a very slow process. And there is another thread of the same activity. So into the RM, there is now a PR merged or soon to be merged about how Anuket and Oran can be put to the same map, let's say. And there the statement is that Anuket is a possibility for the undercloud of OCloud. But that is not saying anything about, again, like the APIs and the specifications. So I think there is still like lots of work to do in both sides, but we are in the phase, at least on Working Group 6 level, when there is room for alignment. Of course, Array2 is also like happy to get any feedback and so on. We have the same with I don't know, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
We have kind of the same with Silva. In Silva, there is a statement that the Silva cloud should be Array2 compliant. And as we saw in the presentation yesterday, I think they are running RC2 against this stack, and they are very close to check all the check marks. There are only two test classes which are not okay. And maybe now Cedric already started the mailing about it. Maybe that is something what we would need to fix on the Anuket side, because one of the tests assumes somehow that you are installing your cluster with kubeadm, which is not true for the Silva stack, and it's not needed anyways. Any other questions? Then I
Not
think,
question.
yeah, go on.
I was going to say not question, but more of a comment that we need to have a long, a nice discussion with the TSC about next step, because it's going to take Anuket's involvement to move things forward. It's not going to just go forward on its own. We have to push it, and I'm just a little disappointed about the lack of participation. Again, I know Heather's already pointed that out, but I think that that requires us to maybe actually put that on the agenda and discuss that for our next TSC meeting. Garrett?
Yeah. Yes, we will. Good idea. Okay, cool. Anything else?
So again, last minute reminders, if you have not already done so, I think probably everyone here has, but just in case, go ahead and register. We do need you to register, even though it is a free and virtual event. Fill out the event survey and attend the town hall at the end of the day today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. See you.